Welcome back to the Kaspa Silver YouTube channel. In today's video, I want to answer the question, did Kaspa have an immaculate conception? Now, you're probably wondering why I'm even bringing this up, but it's because within the Bitcoin community, there's this argument that goes around that Bitcoin had an immaculate conception. Now, when we're talking about this phrase, this usually has a religious background, and this is the belief that Virgin Mary was free of original sin from the moment of her conception of Jesus Christ. Now, personally, I don't actually believe this because I believe the scripture is pretty clear that it says, "For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God," and the only person that can pay your sins is Jesus Christ. But when it comes to Bitcoin and its immaculate conception, does this mean that Bitcoin was free from original sin or that it was perfect? Well, by no means do I believe this is the case for Bitcoin, and it's neither the case for Kaspa, actually. You see, the narrative would have you believe that Bitcoin has never been hacked before, but this is just simply not true. It's just that it's happened so long ago that most people either don't know about it or don't really care to mention it. But it is important to at least put out there that it is possible, but it is highly unlikely. You see, on August 15, 2010, an unknown hacker nearly destroyed Bitcoin. The hacker generated 184 billion Bitcoin out of thin air in what has become known as the value overflow incident. And if you want to read more into what happened here, I'll leave the article down below in the description. But if you don't believe me, this is the blockchain explorer for Bitcoin. And if you search up the block 74,638, it is literally known in the Bitcoin Explorer that this block was responsible for the value overflow incident, otherwise known as the 184 billion Bitcoin bug. It created 184 billion Bitcoin out of thin air. So this is pretty much something that has happened in Bitcoin and means that Bitcoin is by no means perfect. And this also applies to Kaspa. I have a video that I made over a year ago called Kaspa Black Tuesday, which is related to a network crash that Kaspa had in the first 2 weeks of its existence. Now, the funny thing is with Bitcoin, this hack where they created a lot more of the supply and it was a bug that needed to be fixed happened within the first 2 years of Bitcoin's existence. But with Kaspa, there was a bug that happened within the first 2 weeks. And I think it's kind of ironic that Kaspa being faster than Bitcoin is not only just faster when it comes to transactions, but it seems that it's also faster when it comes to exposing problems with itself. Coming back to Bitcoin's immaculate conception, I believe the Brave AI tool summarized this pretty well here. It says the concept of Bitcoin's immaculate conception refers to its mysterious origin and the anonymous nature of Satoshi Nakamoto. This anonymous nature of him is seen as crucial for a decentralized system as it prevents centralized control and authority, making Bitcoin a technology that emerged without a clear inventor or entity to hold accountable. Now, I don't agree with this so much because even if Satoshi still existed today, there would still be no centralized control of Bitcoin. He actually existed within the first like 3 years of Bitcoin and was kind of calling the shots, if you want to allow me to use that kind of language. But at the end of the day, there is no single person that can control Bitcoin, and it applies the same for Kaspa. And so it says Bitcoin's origin story is likened to a religious narrative where Satoshi Nakamoto is often compared to a divine figure or messenger, with Bitcoin being seen as a gift from a higher power, perfect in both design and timing. This narrative has contributed to Bitcoin's strong community and its perceived destiny to become a dominant form of digital currency. The term Immaculate Conception in the context of Bitcoin also highlights the unique circumstances surrounding its launch, such as the absence of established value for digital cash at the time, which allowed for a fair and historically unique distribution. Moreover, the Immaculate Conception of Bitcoin has sparked debates and divisions within the cryptocurrency community as different groups interpret the white paper and the original source code in various ways, leading to forks and the creation of altcoins. The concept of Immaculate Conception in Bitcoin emphasizes its decentralized nature and the importance of its origin story in shaping its future. And I think it just also goes to show how Bitcoin is heavily built on narratives that are just completely made up, and pretty much could change at any moment because, by all means, yes, Satoshi Nakamoto hasn't been around for many years and he's never sold his Bitcoin, but who knows? He could come back and actually move his Bitcoin, but I would assume that that probably is not going to happen. So now I want to answer the question, does Kaspa have an immaculate conception? Are there unique things when it comes to Kaspa and its launch? And so when it comes to Kaspa, there is a known living founder who is still communicating today, unlike Bitcoin that doesn't really have one. But at the end of the day, the founder doesn't really matter because Kaspa and Bitcoin are things that are fully decentralized and no one can actually manipulate them because the code is completely open source, and any changes to the network, you would need to find consensus with every single node and miner, which is very, very difficult to do. So what is so unique about the launch of Kaspa? Well, the founder is not just some random person who came out of nowhere and decided to launch Kaspa. He actually goes back over 10 years and appears in the Ethereum white paper. You can see right here that when talking about the Ghost implementation that Ethereum was going to use, that Jonathan Somplinsky and Aviv Zohar came up with back in 2013. So Jonathan goes way back when it comes to cryptocurrency. And honestly, I think this is something that can never be replicated again with any other cryptocurrency, with a founder being mentioned in the Ethereum white paper. The only way this could be replicated is if probably like Aviv comes out and makes his own coin, but Aviv was kind of responsible behind developing Kaspa as well. And so this is just super unique to Kaspa that it's not something that just started overnight. It actually has over 10 plus years of research. And not only that, you could see Jonathan Somplinsky here attending the Scaling Bitcoin conferences that were happening back in 2015 when people were trying to figure out how they can possibly scale Bitcoin. But of course, all ideas were eventually rejected, and Bitcoin has decided to just remain completely stubborn to any kinds of change and instead adopt this narrative of digital gold. Well, Jonathan Somplinsky obviously didn't stop there and continue innovating and trying to improve proof of work to make it the fastest and most scalable system in the world. And he has done that with Kaspa. So, what is another thing that makes the launch of Kaspa so unique and why I would beg to argue that it has some sort of immaculate conception? Well, I would argue that the existence of DagLabs and it disappearing is completely unique. You see, if you don't know about DagLabs, I do have a few videos that talk about this in the past, and the links to all of these videos will be down in the description. But I have one video here that goes into what DagLabs was, and also another video talking about the origins of Kaspa. But we have an article here that was written back in 2020 before Kaspa even existed, of Jonathan talking about DagLabs. DagLabs is a company, and DagLabs was a for-profit entity whose business model is based on mining Kaspa. DagLabs is additionally funding many core Kaspa devs and researchers. Now, the idea for Kaspa was to still have no pre-mine or founders rewards, but DagLabs was going to issue the ASIC miners for Kaspa, which would still mean that the founders will still be able to get their supply of Kaspa in a very unfair manner. And not only that, Kaspa would have an issuer known as DagLabs and would be trying to profit off of Kaspa based on the ASICs that were selling for it. You can see here that the idea that Jonathan had was that DagLabs will oversee a pre-launch customization of ASICs that will support a hash function specific to Kaspa, providing a head start on mining. These machines will dominate the market for an unknown period until other players decide to enter. The value of these machines must be distributed across early contributors, investors, and community, and a future development fund in some form of ASIC pre-sale. The benefits of an ASIC pre-sale model are described thoroughly in Nick Carter's post, and this kind of goes more deeper into Jonathan's idea of doing a pre-sale for ASICs instead of a pre-sale for the coins of Kaspa itself. And ideally, it would still end up being that DagLabs would have held the majority of the entire supply. Over here, he had more ideas of how people could get Kaspa coins. It says before mainnet launch, a DeFi contract will auction out the right to future Kaspa coins. Interested community members will lock some coins, say ETH, on said DeFi contract and receive Kaspa at a future date. These Kaspa would originate from the machines operated by DagLabs. The coins will flow to the contract, and in exchange, the contract will release the locked ETH and send them to DagLabs. The money will repay DagLabs for the capital expenses of the ASICs, fund the operational expenses of these ASICs, and be saved for future development. Now, thankfully, none of this happened. I mean, no one even talks about this because none of this actually happened. What actually happened was that DagLabs failed as a company. It ran out of funding and was not able to continue developing Kaspa. And so instead of completely scrapping the project of Kaspa altogether, Jonathan decided to release Kaspa completely fair launched and start it with CPU mining, which is exactly how Bitcoin started when it was launched. You could see here that Jonathan Samploninsky made this statement about DagLabs once it failed. So DagLabs was able to raise overall roughly $8 million. And this was because Polychain Capital had invested some money into the company of DagLabs. He goes on to say here, the project's initial business plan was to develop optical proof of work like ASICs and sell and distribute their hash rate. As I described in some Medium post, I thought of it as a good middle ground between decentralization and sustainability. The fact that this plan failed is indeed a failure of DagLabs as a for-profit entity. The reason it failed was a combination of the immaturity of optical proof of work ASIC tech and together with Polychain's assessment that pure fair launch is the only path to give Kaspa, and in fact, any proof of work coin, true chance at growing to meet its goals and dreams. If you think Polychain's support of this is weird or even suspicious, then you probably hadn't had the chance to engage with crypto VCs. As I said in Kaspa Telegram group, crypto space has seen way more bizarre instances than a VC supporting fair launching over no launching. And at the end of the day, DagLabs, when it was failing and basically just completely ran out of funds, they were able to mine some Kaspa in the early days, but everyone that was working at DagLabs was competing with everyone else because Kaspa launched completely fair to the public, to the whole entire world with CPU mining. So anyone in the world at the time could mine it fairly, and this is exactly like Bitcoin, but with Kaspa it's actually much more decentralized because there was hundreds of people that were already informed about Kaspa launching, whereas when Bitcoin launched you probably only had a handful of people that knew about Bitcoin at the start. But you could see here that DagLabs and Polychain together was only able to get about 3% of the supply in the early days, and this is even much less than what Satoshi Nakamoto was able to acquire, which is estimated to be about 4 to 5% of the entire supply of Bitcoin. So to answer the question, does Kaspa have an immaculate conception? I would argue that it sort of does. Now, obviously, this is just my opinion, and it's no different than Bitcoiners making their opinion, with Bitcoin having its own immaculate conception. But truly, Kaspa had some very unique things that happened in the early days that were pretty much not on purpose and just happened to come about. And for example, if DagLabs still remained and a part of Kaspa, I would not even be making this video here today, because the main reason why me and so many other people are even interested in Kaspa is because it did have a fair launch. It does not have a company, and it has no pre-mine or any kind of initial allocations to anyone in an unfair manner. And this just makes Kaspa so unique to about 99% of other cryptocurrencies. And I want to leave you guys off with a quote from Satoshi back in 2009. He says here, a lot of people automatically dismiss e-currency as a lost cause because of all the companies that failed since the 1990s. I hope it's obvious it was only the centrally controlled nature of those systems that doomed them. I think this is the first time we're trying a decentralized, non-trust based system, and the first time was with Bitcoin, and I believe the next second best time is with Kaspa here today. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. And before we go, if you have not considered getting yourself a Tangent wallet, they do have these Kaspa cards that you can pick up. There's 2,057 wallets left. If you use the code Kaspa Silver at the checkout, you will receive 10% off your order. And I also do receive a commission for this, and it greatly does help support my channel. So thank you guys so much for considering purchasing one of these if you do. But Tangent is a really great way to secure your Kaspa offline and off exchanges. If you do keep your Kaspa on an exchange, you don't actually own it. And if the exchange was to ever go bankrupt, you may or may not ever see your Kaspa again. So it's so important to make sure that you are self-custodying your crypto in your own wallet. Thank you guys again for watching. Please leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you guys are new around here. And as always, don't be average, be different.